Let me ask you something. Is it EX-01 or EX-01? Welcome back, everyone. My name is Steven. I'm your true champion, and yes, in today's video, I'm going to share with y'all all my deck lists from the EX-01 format. I have 5 for you today, and they are all awesome. As always, whenever I do these all my deck videos, these are not necessarily solved or perfect deck lists, but they are, in my opinion, really solid first drafts that are either improved strategies that got improved because of the new set, or they're new strategies that came out from the new set. Hopefully each one appeals to you. Hopefully you can learn something in terms of how to build decks in this format, or better yet, what deck you should take to your very first EX-01 tournament. And this video, I feel, is a little bit more important than other videos I've put out like this in the past, because the EX-01 format is going to be the Nationals format for the Digimon TCG, and those events are looking to be the biggest events in Digimon history, so understanding this format is paramount to doing well in those events. Because while it is true that EX-01 is a small set, it has a pretty big impact in terms of improving past really strong strategies and introducing a couple of heavy hitters that are looking to do some big damage on release. If y'all enjoy this video and get any value out of what I have to say, be sure to let me know by smashing that like button, subscribing to the channel, and clicking that bell for notifications, so you know when my videos go live for you. And be sure to let me know down below in the comments what deck you are most looking forward to playing in the EX-01 format. With that said, let's go ahead and check out my EX-01 deck lists for the Digimon TCG. Alright y'all, here we are. I got my deck lists pulled up, and before I talk about each individual list, I want to let y'all know a lot of information is about to spill out of my mouth about the Digimon TCG. So if anything in this video confuses you, or you want me to elaborate on anything I talk about, leave questions down below in the comments, or better yet, follow me over on Twitch so you can ask your questions live and in person. I go live all the time. Links are down below as always. With that said, let's hop into the first deck I want to talk about. Fun fact, it's the first deck I talked about in the last All My Decks video for set 6, and that is Blue Gabumon Bond of Friendship. Look, I don't need to tell you, if you've been playing the Digimon TCG for the past 2 months, that this is a killer strong deck. And believe it or not, with the existence of one card, it became even more killer. And that one card, for the fans of the ban list, is Ice Wall. Yes, this card got restricted to 1 for a reason. It is that strong. But sadly, in the first 2 or 3 weeks, I think, of the EX-01 format, you will be able to play with 4 of these in your deck. And that's pretty scary, because if you guys don't know, the real issue with this card isn't necessarily its effect, it's the fact that you can use its effect multiple times across multiple turns. But for those that don't know, let's go ahead and read the effect. It is a blue option card with a memory cost of 1, and the main effect, all of your opponent's Digimon gain when attacking, lose 2 memory until the end of their next turn, with the security effect of gain 2 memory. It's the same as Hammer Spark in that regard. And the interesting thing about Ice Wall, or should I say the one cool thing about it, is the role it serves in decks. While the initial design of this card was to be a defensive option, so that way if you wanted to live 1 extra turn, you could, the way it acts in Digimon is you'll use it as a way to go from 0 to 1 and make it impossible for your opponent to attack more than 1 time unless they have a bunch of memory gain effects. And the reason why this is broken is because if you play 4 copies of this card, there's a very good chance you can do it turn after turn after turn, and your opponent is just never able to attack you, and you have all these free turns to gain more resources and attack yourself. And when you throw a deck, and when you give a deck like Gabumon Bond of Friendship free turns, that leads to an absurd amount of resources, which then leads to an absurd amount of attacks in a single turn that can win most situations. Basically, the way this deck is designed is Gabumon Bond of Friendship and all the rookies and champions and hybrids serve as the ultimate sword, and Ice Wall serves as the ultimate shield. You are never dying the turn after you cast Ice Wall, unless your opponent has a bunch of memory gain effects that they've saved out of nowhere, but cool cards you can include like Motokai Betamon limit those options. And fun fact, you can cast multiple Ice Walls and their effects stack. So if I use 2 Ice Walls, every single attack my opponent does costs 4 memory to perform, and that's just a little insane. Besides Ice Wall, the other new card that's included from EX-01 for Bond of Friendship decks is the brand new EX-01 Gabumon. Who knew? They created a new Gabumon, so it gets thrown into this deck. It's actually a super useful card that enables you to be more aggressive with champions, but then also, through being aggressive, you add to your consistency. So he has an inheritable effect. When attacking, once per turn, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 Tamer card or 1 Digimon card with Gabumon in its name from among them to your hand, place the remaining on the bottom of the deck in any order. This card is like made for this deck. The 2 things you need to win with this deck are your Matashitas and your Gabumon Bond of Friendships. And this card searches for both while attacking. So we're playing a heavier count of champions that we like to evolve into, like Octomon, who's a really powerful Digimon we can attack with almost immediately, and a really nice thing to throw on top of this. And we have Kendo Garurumon, who's a very useful hybrid Digimon, so he can serve as like a way to win games out of nowhere, but he's also useful in general with the when attacking effect to bounce level 3s. It's useful against other Bond-based decks like Agubond or Mirror Match, and it's just kind of nice when people try to like set up weenies in their battle area that can supplement their stronger Digimon hiding in the breeding area. And other than that, the rest of the deck is pretty solid and simple. One thing I will mention is that in this version, my preferred removal spell of choice is Absolute Blast. Now, this card is probably one you're not used to seeing in Bond of Friendship. You're probably used to seeing Rattlestar or Cocytus Breath, but the reason why I've chosen to play Absolute Blast is because it's really the only removal spell that deals with Sakuyamon. And if you guys have played against Security Control as a Gabumon player, you will know that Sakuyamon is one of the most annoying parts about that deck, along with so many other annoying things. While things like Cocytus Breath and Rattlestar can bounce and get rid of the Sakuya for a turn, they can just re-hard play it, and that deck has no problem doing that. Absolute Blast, however, can tuck it to the bottom of the deck and be a more permanent answer to dealing with it. Also, I want to point out that in this version of Gabumon, you don't really need removal spells for decks that aren't Sakuyamon, because, like I said, Ice Wall is the ultimate defense. If you cast Ice Wall and your opponent's at 1 memory, you're not dying. You will get another turn. So if the purpose of playing your removal is so you can deal with threats, don't worry about that. Nothing is threatening to Ice Wall unless it can gain memory. And even if it can, you can cast multiple Ice Wall to also deal with it. Believe it or not, Gabumon only really needs 1 extra turn sometimes against threatening decks to actually go in for game because of the amount of resources and storm damage it can do with hybrids and whatnot. So Ice Wall is more than enough to give you the turns you need to win the game, and a card like Absolute Blast serves more as a tech card for a particular matchup that is hard to deal with otherwise. If you don't want to play this, you can play cards like Cocytus Breath, or even just play more rookies and champions, because honestly, there really is no other kinds of cards you can throw in here. We're already maxing out or playing more than enough of everything we need in this deck. Alright, that's enough rambling about how crazy Ice Wall is with Gabumon. This is looking to be the best deck in the format. Definitely, if you don't plan on playing it, understand how to play against it, because you probably will. I myself personally love this deck, so of course I'm playing it in its most powerful incarnation to date. While we're on the subject of BDIFs, let's go ahead and move on to the next deck I want to talk about, and that is Red Jesmon. Unlike Bond of Friendship, Jesmon didn't necessarily change the fundamental way you build the deck. Like, you'll still play defensive cards like blockers or removal cards like Blade or Atomic Blaster, and you'll still play your going for game cards like A Delicate Plan and Omnimon. But thanks to EX-01, we do have a new tool that Jesmon decks can utilize in situations that previously were hard to deal with. And that card is Emergency Program Shutdown alongside Analog Boy to enable us to use it, since it is a white option card. This white option card that has a 3 cost to play normally has a very simple effect. Main, your opponent can't use option cards until the end of their next turn. Fact about this card really quick, it does not shut down option cards in the security, so it's not like 2 more copies of Delicate Plan. You usually end your turn by playing this card. And then it also has on top of that the security effect of your opponent can't use option cards this turn, then add this card to its owner's hand. So like if your opponent like is too aggressive and they check this, they can't use Hammer Spark or Ice Wall anymore, right? That's like an example of what it can do if it's checked in security. The benefit of this card in this deck is it basically serves as an enabler for you to bring your Jesmon up early. Because what sucks is when you play a Jesmon deck, you're usually afraid to attack early with your Jesmon because you don't want it to go away and then have to build another one out of nowhere. Because if you don't have any red Digimon established, you can't build anything on top of your Sistermons, so there's no real way to get back up to a Mega quickly. However, the main way people deal with Jesmon, because you have so many blockers and he's naturally really high in DP thanks to your seals, is they use option cards like Gaia Force, Ultimate Flare, Cocytus Breath, etc. If you end your turn by playing Program Shutdown, they can't use those option cards anymore to get rid of your Jesmon, and thus you can play this deck more like a Lord Nightmon deck that accumulates value and board presence and then uses that to win the game versus one big burst turn that tries to clear all security in one go. On top of that, you get the extra consistency that is Analog Youth, a new card that came out in EX-01, which is booming and going to be seen probably in a lot of decks. If you guys don't know what this card does at all, it has two effects. The main one is on play, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 Digimon card from among them to your hand, and then you trash the rest. Really useful for digging for all your Huckmon pieces, or even getting Sistermons in the trash that you can recycle with things like Jesmon or Different of the Blade. And then his all turns effect is when one of your level 5 or higher Digimon with Digivolution cards is deleted, you may rest this tamer. If you do gain 1 memory, then hatch 1 Digi-Egg to an empty space. So it can let you gain memory and kind of recoup Digimon whenever you lose them. So if you're being a bit aggressive with your ultimates, which you do sometimes against like bond decks or whatnot, this can help you like keep up in the damage race because you can get free Digimon, or should I say replacement Digimon, when some die. Also, a situation that comes up a lot when you're fighting against like security control decks is, again, they'll just sit on Sakuyamon and make it very difficult for you to actually go for game with your Jesmon that's been waiting in the breeding area trying to dodge all the scary option cards. Well, guess what? If they have a Sakuyamon in play, you can now just promote this bad boy, get all your free dudes. Who cares if you don't deal damage? You can just end your turn by going Program Shutdown. You can't play any option cards during your turn, which means this Jesmon is immortal. You can't deal with it at all. And if you combo that with some kind of Judgment of the Blade to get rid of the Sakuyamon so they can't Valder arm you, it's like so much value for you. And then on the following turn, you follow it up with a Delicate Plan on your Jesmon. He swings for a bunch. You swing with all your other Digimon. You win the game in a single turn, or a series of turns, I should say. And that to me is like the real like awesome use of Program Shutdown. And then you have like some niche cases, because Program Shutdown is also the best way to stop Ice Wall from being a problem. And as I just told you, Ice Wall is a scary card that you need an answer to. And sometimes that answer is gaining memory, or sometimes that answer is just don't let them play it. If you end your turn with Program Shutdown, they cannot end their turn with Ice Wall, which means you can attack as much as you want on the following turn. And if that following turn is the turn you've set up to go for game, you can now ensure it thanks to Program Shutdown. So yeah, I really just wanted to make this deck list for you guys to show you another option you have as a Jesmon player for dealing with option cards or dealing with people that try to stop you from playing Jesmon. And the added bonus is it enables you to play differently with Jesmon, because now you don't need to fear what your opponent's going to do on their following turn with all their powerful option cards. You can just go ham, swing, get free value, end your turn with this card, and then you're good to go. Alright, I know what y'all are thinking. Steven, Bond of Friendship is cool, Ice Wall's broken, Jesmon's cool, Shutdown's cool, but these aren't EX-01 decks. Don't worry, I got you. The next deck I'm going to show you is my current take on Black-Red Machinedramon for EX-01, and as I'm sure you guys can tell, it's centered around the awesome secret rare from EX-01, Machinedramon. Now, if you guys don't know what this card does, he kind of works like Darkdramon from D-Brigade. His main effect is on play, you may place up to 5 level 5 red and or black cards with Cyborg in their traits and have different card numbers from your hand and or trash in this Digimon's Digivolution cards to gain 1 memory for each card placed. Basically, if you have at least 2 memory at the start of your turn, you can play this guy from your hand, give your opponent 10, and then place 5 sideboard cards underneath that have different card numbers, and then gain a memory for each one you place. Maximum is 5. To make sure we have enough cyborg targets in this deck, we play a bunch of level 5 red and black cyborgs. I think my current count is 14. A lot of decks play anywhere from 12 to 14. I prefer having the variety as well as the ample amount because other cards in this deck utilize those cyborgs to either gain advantage or dig through your deck. Now, it doesn't end there. Machinedramon does have 2 other really useful effects. The little one is all turns, this Digimon's DP can't be reduced. Nice against like yellow decks or security control decks that play Wyvern's Breath. And then the second or last effect is all turns, when this Digimon would be deleted, you may trash 2 level 5 Digimon cards in this Digimon's Digivolution cards to prevent this Digimon from being deleted. The key word there is prevent, which means if he has an on-deletion effect, it won't trigger, or if your opponent is using a Piercer against him, it actually won't trigger because he's not being deleted. You're preventing the deletion. Also, if you're good at math back home, he basically has 3 lives if he has a full stack of 5 level 5 cyborgs. So the idea of this deck is pretty simple. You slam this guy down whenever you have the ability to fill him with 5 cyborgs, and you get the added benefit of all those cyborgs having some pretty neat inheritables. I'll go through the list right now just so you have an idea of what they all do. Gigadramon gives plus 2000 DP during your opponent's turn, basically making this guy at 13,000 base. Volcanomon can add plus security attack to your Digimon if your opponent has anything unsuspended. Pretty cool. Andromon adds blockers to machines, which is super interesting. He kind of works like Megadramon from the starter deck, but he only works on machines. We have Metal Tyrannomon, just like Andromon. He only works on machines, but he gives reboot instead of blocker. And then we have Mamamon, who is the last of these like EX-01 black cyborgs that can give machines the ability to, when attacking, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 5 or less. Really nice for removal. And then we have some nice like tech ones here. I have the blocker Megadramon in this deck, not only because it's another cyborg that can give blocker to Machinedramon, but also it can work with our other black level 6 in Genkumon. If you play a Black Royal Knights deck, how useful this card is if it has blocker, as well as all of its other effects. And then we have 2 red Digimon to kind of round off our pool here. Megadramon's actually a really interesting card that has a Mistymon-like main effect to on play kill 2 things with 3000 DP or less, but his inheritable effect also gives plus security attack to Machinedramon. And then finally, our last just like tech level 5, so we have plenty of different names or different card numbers, is Metal Greymon, that can give piercing to Dragonkins or Machine, and he also has a when attacking effect that can kill 4000 DP or less Digimon, which does come up against the more rookie-based aggro decks like Bond of Friendship. That's pretty much it for the main strategy of the deck. You have Machinedramon that wants to have a bunch of different cyborgs in your trash, and the rest of the cards in this deck either enable us to survive long enough to achieve multiple turns of Machinedramon, or let us fill our trash very quickly with cyborgs. The brand new Haguramon and Gardramon are both very useful cards when it comes to ditching cyborgs from your hand to the trash and then gaining advantage. And my personal favorite card in this deck that abuses this engine is the very beautifully drawn black option card from EX-01, Ultimate Connection. Personally, my favorite thing to do with Ultimate Connection is hang on to them for as long as I can to do a big burst turn, whether it's with Genkumon or whether it's with a Machinedramon I already played that I can then turn into an Onimon Zwart or a Zwart Defeat and do something accordingly. Personally, my biggest problem when it comes to working on this deck isn't actually making Machinedramon work. You would think having to play like 12 to 14 ultimates makes the deck inconsistent. No, it actually makes it very consistent. The problem is, how do you add stuff to that? Like, where do you find space for removal cards? Where do you find space for extra beat sticks or ways to gain extra aggression? Right now, I'm choosing to play a combination of just generically good black cards like Chikurimon and Genkumon to help fill that void, but you could easily fill that void as well by playing things like Ultimate Flare, Iron Fisted Onslaught, and a bunch of other things that black has access to now thanks to EX-01 and Set 6. So while this deck definitely feels like a fun one to experiment with, I definitely recommend starting simple, making sure the Machinedramon part of your deck works really well, and then adding onto it later. That appears to work really well for me, and right now this list is the one I'm liking the most. Speaking of trying new things and seeing how they work, let's talk about purple. The purple deck I'm about to show you is one you might not be expecting, but it's one that I think is really cool, and that is purple Titamon. Notice how I didn't say Titamon Loop or Titamon plus Lilithmon, I just said Titamon. So we all know that the ban list happened a few days ago, and a lot of Lilith Loop players are very sad that Mega Digimon Fusion will eventually be gone. However, I saw it as an opportunity to really dig into, research, and discover a new way to play purple that I feel not enough people are taking into consideration. And that is Titamon Toolbox / Beatdown. We all know Titamon is a super powerful Digimon that has a ton of cool effects and facilitates a really powerful discard focused engine in purple. But it kind of gets outshined by more power ceiling heavy decks like Lilith Loop or even Titamon Loop. But that deck really isn't a Titamon deck, it's a Omnimon Zwart deck that has Titamon as its main engine. Thanks to EX-01, however, we gained a really cool tool that I think this deck can utilize very well in the form of win rate 60%. Coming in at a play cost of 2, this white option card is actually not even a white option card because it has this nice little bit of text here that says, if you have a Tamer in play, you may use this option card without meeting its color requirements. So you don't need to play cards like Analog Youth or Tai and Matt Kamiya if you don't want to, like you would have to do with cards like Mega Digimon Fusion. Along with this versatility comes a pretty cool effect. Main, the next time one of your Digimon digivolves this turn, you may trash one Digimon card in your hand of the same color as the digivolving Digimon to reduce the memory cost of the Digivolution by 4. This is basically a pseudo hidden potential discovered for any color. And in this deck, because you're discarding the card for cost, you can achieve so many other effects due to the purple package we have from set 5 and set 6. And the really cool thing about being able to play any Tamer you want with a card like Win Rate actually leads to the other cool thing about this deck, which is the Tamer of choice, Mimi Tachikawa, but purple. Anyone that's ever seen this card knows how funny it can be sometimes, being able to make your option cards cheaper while sometimes making your opponent's option cards more expensive. And in this deck, if you have at least one Mimi in play, win rate 60% becomes a 1-cost option card. And that essentially means any Digivolution you want can become 1 cost to evolve instead of 2 or 3 or even 4 in Titamon's case. So the basic combo in this deck is really simple. You have one memory, Mimi Tachikawa in play, and hopefully a Black War Graumon. You use win rate 60%, discard some random purple card, and then evolve into Titamon for free, getting one free dude thanks to his on-digivolve effect, proccing all of your discard effects like Ginkakumon, Goblimon, etc., and then you attack twice with 14,000 DP minimum of plus security damage to your opponent's face. This is literally an Omnimon Zwart turbo deck without the need for Omnimon Zwart. And that's what I think is really cool about it. And the added bonus of having Mimi Tachikawa being our Tamer of choice means we can also do some pretty funny stuff with the slew of powerful purple option cards. Deathclaw becomes a free card that can just kill any level 4 you want, when in combination with cards like Elecmon means you can 1-for-2 very easily, super useful. Purple Memory Boost becomes a 2-cost option card to play at minimum that can then gain you 2 more memory later on, and my personal favorite is Underworld's Call. This card is better than Night Raid because you actually get the on-play effects of cards, and being able to make this like 2 cost and then get a card like Ginkakumon Promote, which can then proc its effect to gain memory and draw because you have Kinkaku and Ginkaku in your trash, means it's a 1-cost rush Digimon that you can just play and attack with at your leisure. This deck essentially takes all the cool aspects of Lilithmon Loop and merges them with the really fast discard engine that Purple has had for a long time, and all it really needed to come to fruition was a really useful option card that came out in EX-01. I know this is probably not the Purple deck you thought you'd see in this video, but it's one that I really like, and I think you would too. Alright y'all, I've saved the best for last. You know what's coming up if you've seen the thumbnail. I love this deck. It's probably my favorite deck in EX-01 to play with right now, and it's one that I will most likely use in the first tournament of this format. And that is Black Diaboromon. Before I rant about all the new cards that Diaboromon got that made the archetype super solid, let's briefly go over how this archetype works. If you guys have never seen Diaboromon before, it's basically the token spam archetype in Digimon. You generate really powerful Diaboromon tokens that are level 6 white Digimon with a play cost of 14 and a DP of 3000 DP. That will matter later. You either gain aggression through having these tokens stay on board and attack multiple times throughout multiple turns, or you gain utility in effects that say you gain benefits / other abilities through having Digimon with the same name in play. Because all the tokens, while they are tokens, are still considered Diaboromon. And that's basically how the deck works. I think of it more as token utility versus token spam, but you can generate a lot of tokens, so we may as well call it token spam. And the new card that really kind of drove home that this is a good and viable archetype in this meta is the brand new super rare Diaboromon from EX-01. On the surface, there's nothing really crazy about this card. Security effect: at the end of the battle, you may play one Diaboromon token without paying its memory cost. Super useful. A way to get a free token during your opponent's turn. And then opponent's turn, all of your Diaboromon, including itself, gain blocker. So you can turn all those tokens you have into meat shields that can protect you from incoming attacks. Now that's great and all, but it doesn't actually solve the core problem that Diaboromon has had for a while, which is once you get tokens in play, it's kind of hard to keep them in play. But a new card we got from an English exclusive Dash Pack promo, from my understanding, is Kurisarimon. Promo Kurisarimon, and if you guys don't know what this card does, I know you can't read it, but I'll tell you right now. It has the inheritable, all turns, all of your Digimon with the same name as this Digimon gain decoy, black or white. And if you don't know what decoy is, when one of your other black or white Digimon would be deleted by an opponent's effect, you may delete this Digimon to prevent that deletion. So if you have this new EX-01 Diaboromon on top of that Kurisarimon, all of your tokens become blockers with decoy. So not only can they protect you from attacks, but they can protect your big Diaboromon from being controlled by things like Gaia Force, or the effects of Digimon like Genkumon, for example. And that is really useful because the big problem is keeping all of your Diaboromons in play, because the tokens by themselves don't do anything. It's the Diaboromon and the other effects that give them the value you need to actually win the game with those cards. And basically, what makes this deck really cool is that thanks to these blockers, it's really hard to kill Diaboromon decks now. And if Diaboromon is given enough turns, they can create so much advantage out of nowhere and then use it instantly to kill you, thanks to other cards like Kurisarimon that can give rush to tokens, or even Armageddonmon that naturally has rush himself and is a 3 cost to play if you use his reduction effect. So yeah, the brand new Diaboromon strategy definitely feels more turtley / defensive, but it also gains a ton of advantage and uses it to win games, and I like it a lot. Now, this deck that you're seeing right now might not look like a Diaboromon deck you were expecting, because there is no TP1 Diaboromon that can gain plus security attack for each Diaboromon you have. And while we did get some new cards that facilitate an OTK-focused Diaboromon deck, I'm not a big fan of it, because if I were to play an OTK deck, I'd play something like Jesmon or Bond of Friendship before I'd play Diaboromon. But if I wanted to play a defensive / advantage-based deck, this version of Diaboromon seems really good to me. So definitely make sure when you're approaching building Diaboromon, you're clear on which one you like more, because there are different playstyles within this strategy. On top of all those new cards we gained, we also gained some pretty cool consistency options, like the brand new Caramon and Infernmon, one that lets you gain DP during your turn, and this one that lets you gain DP during your opponent's turn, which is kind of useful for your tokens, making them 5000 DP, so against the rookie-focused Bond decks, you can just block their rookies and still be alive afterwards, and that's a ton of value out of nowhere. And of course, wrapping all this in a pretty little bow is the main man of this archetype, Arata Sonata. This is our main token generator and our main memory gainer of the deck that enables us to play so consistently and so efficiently, and also gain a butt ton of resources in the process. And one thing I forgot to point out too is that thanks to the inclusion of Analog Youth, We actually have a way to dig through our deck for Digimon that doesn't eat into our rookie space like more useless rookies or more useless level 4s. We can now play just all the Diaboromon pieces we need to make the deck flow nicely, and we can just search for them. Plus, the added benefit of actually putting Digimon in the trash adds to our ability to gain memory off of Errata Sonata more efficiently. Super cool. Just a nice little consistency boost to the deck, if you ask me. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say about Diaboromon. I've officially left my soapbox of praise for this deck. Definitely give it a try if you are interested in Diaboromon, but also give it a try if you're not interested in Diaboromon, because I just think it's that good of a deck. And boom, there you guys go. That wraps up all of my EX-01 deck lists for the Digimon TCG. Hopefully y'all enjoyed. If you did and got any value out of what I had to say, be sure to let me know by smashing that like button, subscribing to the channel, and clicking that bell for notifications so you know when my videos go live for you. And if there's anything in this video you want me to elaborate on or talk more about, be sure to follow me over on Twitch so you can ask your questions live and in person. Link is down below, as always. But with all that being said, I've been your true champion, Steven. Please be sure to work hard, rest easy, and live well. And I will see you all next time. Peace.